they don't make them like Independence Day anymore. Yes, super expensive sci-fi blockbusters still exist with stacked casts of A-list celebs implausibly trotting the globe, hopping between action-packed set pieces while cracking wise. Those aren't going anywhere. But when it comes to the science of special effects, the handmade scale model apocalypse of Independence Day was the triumphant last gasp of a vanishing craft. The know-how is still there, and in a world of 3D printers, the physical hurdles to miniature effects have surely been lowered. But CGI is simply faster, more flexible, and infinitely easier to change your mind about, especially on a modern blockbuster where films are frantically revised until the last possible second. It's much less of a hassle to redesign a superhero suit in post or spice up a computer-generated skybeam than it is to build a 14-foot model out of plaster and blow it up with 40 explosive charges. Dozens of painstakingly detailed miniatures are detonated throughout Independence Day, also known for copyright reasons as ID4, in a wave of destructive annihilation that defined the summer of 1996 more than the Macarena. The film's flagship image of an exploding White House was so potent that Fox bet their entire marketing strategy around it, saving the debut for one of the most impactful Super Bowl ads in modern history. It was an image destined to become immortalized on a lenticular VHS cover, but a lot of things had to come together to destroy the pretend People's House. A lot of money, a lot of talent, and a lot of extremely flammable tiny furniture with just one chance to pull it off. ID4 was hand-built from scratch and blown up spectacularly in a feat of practical magic that we may never see again. This is the special effects story of the last time Hollywood did it the hard way. Let's kick the tires and light the fires because this is Independence Day, the last handmade blockbuster.
That's what I call a close encounter.
I think when you do a special effect movie, I think you should do something which, first of all, you have to go to the limits of what technology can do, and you have to create sequences that people haven't seen.
1996 was a big year for close encounters of the mass-market sci-fi kind. Mulder and Scully sizzled, Michael and Bugs beckoned us to join them in a cosmic jam, and Jack Nicholson was unalived by cackling CGI Martians twice. The digital future was arriving like an alien invasion force, and everyone could feel it, including Hollywood. Computer graphics were already a fixture of the VFX pipeline by '96, no longer a novelty, but a legitimate tool. Pioneering films like Terminator 2 and Jurassic Park had offered a glimpse into what was possible, and it was only a year removed from Toy Story, the first full-length computer-animated feature. It was abundantly clear that CGI was here to stay, but it wasn't the answer to everything just yet, at least not according to Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin. Fresh off the surprise success of Stargate, a modestly budgeted space saga that punched well above its weight at the box office, Emmerich and Devlin hatched their follow-up film in a rented house in Mexico. They emerged after a month with a finished screenplay and full storyboards of what would become Independence Day. Tired of the old tropes of secret alien encounters in cornfields and pastures, the two envisioned ID4 as an in-your-face extraterrestrial orgy of destruction, with flying saucers that stretched for miles, blotting out the skies above Earth's major cities. Getting their idea greenlit was easy. After a brief bidding war, Fox bought the script and blessed it with a $75 million budget, which seems like small potatoes by today's standards when a musical biopic can cost $200 million. Still, director Emmerich and producer Devlin had a huge task on their hands, far beyond anything they'd accomplished before.
We shot over 6,000 elements to make up over 400 visual effect shots. Now, to give perspective on that, our last film, Stargate, which is thought of as a effects-heavy movie, had roughly 260 visual effect shots. So this is over 140 shots more. And in those shots, we had an average of about 3 elements per shot, and here we're averaging 10 to 15 elements per shot.
One would think that pulling off an achievement on such a massive scale would require the latest in CGI technology, a full embrace of the future that had begun to reshape movie making. Instead, Emmerich relied on something more reliable, more convincing, and as it turned out, considerably cheaper. They would make ID4 the old-fashioned way and use the new tech to bring it all together into an unforgettable summer blockbuster. And it all started on the moon.
It's coming from the moon.
Devlin and Emmerich's philosophy is fully evident from the very first shot of the film, the placid silence of the Apollo 11 lunar landing site. As Neil Armstrong's legendary lines echo from our speakers, we see his boot prints in the dust slowly begin to disappear, swallowed by a shadow creeping across the surface. An enormous mothership passes overhead, dwarfing the iconic Star Wars flyby by orders of magnitude, emitting a mysterious signal that wakes up a bunch of character actors and tells them to start the movie.
A radio signal from another world.
Today, a shot like this would almost certainly be entirely digital, and ID4 probably could have pulled it off in 1996. The moon is a harsh mistress after all, and its bleak, textureless gray and lack of organic life wouldn't have been too difficult to render 30 years ago. But that's not what Independence Day did. Instead, the crew built a physical lunar surface 6 meters wide and 8 meters deep, lit with 60,000 watts of light to simulate a single sun source unblemished by atmosphere. They placed small models with clever forced perspective and rigged a tiny motor to a wooden board to simulate a moonquake that makes the famous footprints vanish. It's a solution that would have made the real Apollo engineers proud, the people who landed men on the moon with nothing but slide rules and computers with less processing power than most modern greeting cards. Their tools were primitive, but their ingenuity wasn't.
One of the things Roland has taught me from the first day I started working with him is it's not the tool, it's the craft. And we would approach every special effect shot on the simplest way to do it first, the tried and true, the simplest, easiest way. Only when that wouldn't work would you go up to the next level, and when that wouldn't work, you go to the next level.
The production set up shop in Culver City, California, commandeering a massive aircraft manufacturing plant that once belonged to Howard Hughes. Most of what they built in those cavernous buildings were eventually destroyed, but first they would have to be designed. Patrick Tatopoulos is behind some of the most memorable and polarizing production designs in modern blockbusters. His visual style embodies the end-of-history arrogance of the 90s, the butt-rock malaise of the 2000s, and beyond. It's hard to believe that the timeless look of ID4 came from the same brain that birthed Godzilla 1998 and Batman v Superman.
Alien world, there's nothing you can really potentially start from, and definitely not start from other people's work. You try to avoid that and not get stuck in somebody else's style. So usually when I do alien stuff, any alien material, I try to just start from scratch, let myself go.
Given free reign of the design of the alien harvesters and their massive tech, Tatopoulos kept things fairly simple, taking centuries of cultural obsession with flying saucers and little green men and ordering it supersized.
We wanted to tap into pre-existing mythology about UFOs, because people somehow have an idea of what an alien might look like, or what a spaceship looks like, or what that, all these things would be. So what we try to do is show you that and then take it a step beyond it. Have it look familiar, and then as you see it closer, say it's one step farther. It's wilder than I had imagined.
Spaceship design had progressed a lot since the days of dangling hubcaps on strings, but the complex kit-bashed structure of a Nostromo or Battlestar wouldn't read as large on screen as something far more elemental.
The simpler the shape, the more massive the element looks like. And actually working for those designs, I started to really realize that actually the simple shape makes the thing look much more massive. And that's at that point, our direction were toward that thing, thinking, okay, simple, elegant, and massive.
It's counterintuitive, but it's a time-tested visual trick, going back to the Imperial battle cruisers and tiny rebel fighters of Star Wars. We need context and contrast to understand scale, and there's nothing like seeing tiny swarms around a vast, simple surface to sell something as genuinely enormous. How big are we talking here? We've got hard numbers on the bulbous mothership.
And we estimate that it has a diameter of over 550 kilometers and a mass roughly 1/4 the size of our moon.
But the real stars of Independence Day, Judd Hirsch and Harvey Fierstein aside, are the devastating and aptly named city destroyers. Each one is 15 miles wide, with enough firepower to vaporize any trace of human civilization in a similar radius. To put that in perspective, that's 15 times wider than a Star Destroyer and roughly 37 Enterprise Ds stretched end to end. The destroyers were real physical objects hand-built in 3 different sizes: a 4-foot version, a 12-foot version, and a 30-foot mid-scale model that represented a sixth of the ship and was so large it couldn't fit inside the model shop. All fitted with thousands of inconspicuous details to give the behemoths a techno-organic heaviness. They are fantastic models, and they're on screen for a lot of ID4's runtime, often in broad daylight. We almost get used to them as part of the backdrop before night falls on July 2nd. Now, a city destroyer carries its killing blow on its underbelly, blossoming open with a mechanical grace before obliteration. The crew called it the Schism, and they made it happen with a 10-foot wide, 10-foot high mechanism that only opened upside down. Each shot of the Schism could take a day across multiple passes, with lighting that had to be timed precisely to accommodate the CGI laser beam. Models were filmed via motion control, cameras spinning around a stationary object to simulate precise movement under replicable conditions. The various elements were filmed multiple times over in many layers, from lights and shadows to atmospheric smoke passes for maximum reality.
One of the beauties of compositing is that rather than trying to do everything in camera, trying to do everything live, where you would have to have a model, you'd have to have a spaceship to scale, you'd have to have pyro, and all of that happening at the same time, by compositing in layers, it allows us to choreograph each layer perfectly and then put them together.
Spending thousands to capture plates and pyro means living with your decisions. You don't get a second chance to incinerate this caliber of single-use scenery.
What it really is offering when everything is evaluated is flexibility. So if somebody's shooting model miniatures of an F-18, let's say, once that's shot, the lighting, everything as the way it was shot, you're locked into it. So that by the time you go to put that element together, way down the line, 6 months later, and all of a sudden the director says, oh, guess what, I've changed my mind, this isn't a day scene, it's now a night scene. It's extremely difficult because you're locked into certain parameters. Where with computer-generated imagery, you have control of the lighting, you have control of it just the way you would in a shooting environment. So flexibility is really what digital has to offer the filmmakers.
The CGI era was obviously approaching fast, but some analog techniques still can't be topped. To create the burning skies and fiery clouds when the destroyers enter the atmosphere, Devlin and Emmerich repurposed a huge water tank left over from Stargate and pumped in white tempera paint through thin submerged pipes. Filmed at 360 FPS, the diffusing paint creates an organic, dynamic, almost dreamlike effect that even renderers today have trouble pulling off. Effects like these are physical and fractal and chaotic, and there's often no substitute for the real thing. See also explosions.
Jesus!
For 9 months, while Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum were improvising on set and Robert Loggia was wondering what he'd gotten himself into, model supervisor Mike Joyce and his team were holed up in their Hughes hangar building marvels that put the spruce goose to shame.
There's more miniatures in this movie than probably any 2 movies combined. There's cities to build, there's alien craft, alien creatures, it just runs the whole gamut.
25 model makers, 3 sculptors, and 4 painters were put to work creating spacecraft, landmarks, and entire city blocks, all destined to be destroyed. Patriotic monuments got all the press, but ID4 has more architectural cannon fodder than many kaiju movies. It's no wonder the gang got back together for Godzilla. But what goes up must come crumbling down, so Emmerich and Devlin enlisted one of Hollywood's most trusted demolition experts to pull the trigger, master pyromancer Joe Viscoso, the man who blew up the Death Star. Computers have gotten a lot better at capturing the fractal nature of real explosions, but on a visceral level they pale in comparison to the concussive thump of fiery detonations and splintered wood. Nowhere is this more evident than the fully CGI mothership explosion, a dated, sour note in the Fat Lady's swan song.
I think in what we're doing, miniatures work best. I mean, there's a lot of explosions, a lot of pyro, a lot of fire, a lot of stuff that even today with the sophisticated computers is still tricky to do.
When you blow up a big model, there's nothing better than that. You can't create this like with CGI yet.
And action!
In the early morning hours of July 3rd, 1996, at 2:32 a.m. Eastern Time, the Harvester's countdown triggered a global cataclysm that murdered millions of humans and spared at least one dog. Everything blows up exquisitely in ID4, with the Empire State Building as a particular standout. Timed charges run down the model's full facade in a sequence so oddly satisfying in its perfection that the crew flipped the footage upside down and reused it for the climactic collision between the Schism and Randy Quaid.
Hello, boys! I'm back!
The signature practical effect of the checkmate sequence, minus a certain exploding seat of government, was the wall of destruction rolling down crowded city streets. Emmerich and Devlin were told it couldn't be done.
Pretty much every effect person we talked to said, be prepared for a $150,000 shot. And we said, well, why is it so difficult to do? And they said, well, because not only do you have to shoot the street and shoot all the elements of the street that happen, but you'll have to digitally create the fire that rolls down the street and then digitally composite that into your shot. And that's going to be very expensive to make that look real. And Roland said, well, why can't we just do that all in camera? And I was like, well, it'll look fake, it'll never work. And Roland said, I think I could do that in camera.
But how do you control fire, which rather famously rises up, and funnel it down a horizontal street? You don't.
And when you look down the street, you want that the fire comes right at you. But fire wants to go up, especially like when you do it in a miniature. So what we had to do is we had to build streets and objects upright. The street had to become pretty much a chimney for the fire.
Each street model was constructed at 1/24th scale, 8 feet wide and 20 feet long, dressed with details designed to withstand strict scrutiny under the all-seeing lens of cameras wrapped in flame-retardant material and pointed directly down the length of 5th Street and Grand.
We have the detail from bottom to top.
All the signs, all the telephone poles, all the street lights, parking meters. It basically has everything on it.
We really have to be careful that the best detail is directly in front of the camera.
We'll shoot a blue screen that will be air cannons and stuff, like a concussion wave hitting them, then we'll shoot debris, and then we'll do some live action stuff and some people in it.
Emmerich got the $150,000 shots he dreamed of for just $30,000 a pop thanks to his vertical thinking. But miniatures were only part of the madness. The devastation called for hundreds of extras and dozens of full-sized vehicles flung across the screen. Emmerich used them as punctuation, hurling a bus or fire truck directly into the frame to cut between sequences.
I know in one day alone in New York we crashed 23 cars.
All of it, the practical pyro, the scale models, the doomed citizens, were captured in separate elements and layered together in post. 6 units shooting simultaneously to create a singular, unforgettable opera of obliteration in just 4 minutes of film.
So it is very complicated, but if you get it right, it looks fantastic.
In any other summer blockbuster, the encroaching cliff of fire engulfing all humanity would be the signature defining image of the entire film. But Devlin and Emmerich had other plans. Roland Emmerich had a very simple idea for how to sell Independence Day. He wanted to blow up the White House and broadcast it to the entire world. And that's easier said than done for a variety of reasons, least of all was Fox's reluctance to destroy such a beloved building on national television. The US was only a few months removed from the Oklahoma City bombing, and a federal building exploding on primetime television made studio execs somewhat understandably nervous. Devlin's counterargument was hard to refute. It's space aliens. Fox tested 2 versions of the teaser, one with the White House and one without, and they were so blown away that they not only endorsed the wholesale destruction of 1600 Pennsylvania Ave, they pegged the ad for a prestigious and pricey spot in Super Bowl 30. Fans were going into the game with a sense of dread after a string of boring blowouts, but the big game actually delivered. Between the Pittsburgh Steelers pushing the Cowboys to the wire in what would turn out to be the last championship of the Dallas dynasty, and a killer halftime show from Queen of Motown Diana Ross, it was the most watchable Super Bowl in years. But the biggest showstopper was the 30 seconds of carnage capped with a flying saucer vaporizing the White House. From the earliest days of cinema, we've seen every portico and pillar of the White House recreated for the screen, creating a primal craving baked into the societal psyche to see it reduced to a crater on celluloid. The White House is such a filmic space that Fox already had sets for the Oval Office and Roosevelt Room just lying around, used in 2 previous presidential movies and redressed for the Whitmore administration. The interiors would live to see another day, as would this facade built for the evacuation scene. That final honor would go to a massive, expensive model, Mike Joyce's piece de resistance, 9 months in the making.
Mike Joyce and his team of geniuses sat down and built this unbelievable replica of the White House.
Given the familiarity with the real deal, the miniature, if a 5-foot-tall behemoth could be called that, couldn't skip on the details or the size.
We're building that at 12 scale, which is over 14 feet wide, and we're going to blow it up, and it'll look tremendous when it goes.
This had to be a world-class product because all the cameras that we're setting up around here are within 10 feet of this particular model.
I think, the best White House model ever. We put a lot of thinking into that. We built it not like out of wood, we built it out of plaster. Everything was a mold. So every piece, was like created first in wood and then made a silicone mold out of it and then little plaster pieces, and then it was built like the White House was built out of single pieces.
The model was so convincing that the production used it for forced perspective, avoiding a costly location shoot by filming real extras marching in front of a fence with the miniature set 100 feet back, reading as the actual building. It was a masterpiece of miniature making that cost a lot of money to create, and they only made one. Putting everything on the line would be a lot of pressure for the average pyromaniac, but after pulling the trigger on the Death Star and nuking Los Angeles in Terminator 2, the White House demolition was squarely in Joe Viscoso's wheelhouse.
Today we are doing the explosion of the White House.
This model probably costs in excess of $50,000. I get one shot at it. There's a great many variables that go into the completion and the successful blowing of a model like this. One has to consider what the model is made out of, in this case plaster. You have to know the scale, you have to know the size of the charges that you're using, how much gas, what the camera speeds are. Even though you're shooting 300 frames per second, if I was to use something like dynamite, you would have maybe 2 frames of explosion and that's it. You want to blow it up in stages and you want to see the pieces and debris flying out of there.
The White House has got such great detail in it that even in the most preliminary test that we've done, that the White House holds up in an extreme close-up. So all of a sudden this particular miniature is very near and dear to our hearts because it's got such wonderful detail. I don't know if I really want to blow it up or not.
The crew had come to love the giant hunk of plaster that had been hanging around Hughes aircraft with them all these many months, and more than a few people weren't ready to see it destroyed. At least the model would have company on the day of its oblivion. Fox turned Demolition Day into a press event and built bleachers for journalists to witness the Viking funeral.
Let's clear, please.
When you start to come down to that 10-minute mark, everybody's very concerned because, of course, there's hundreds and hundreds of hours, tens of thousands of dollars, and what we really want to do is make sure that we just don't stub our toe at the last moment. We really only want to do this once.
Roll cameras. Roll cameras, please. Hey! Hey! And action!
It did everything that I expected it to be, and everything went off. We didn't have any problems. The timing was right, the debris was right, fireball was perfect, and this is what's left of it.
And we blew the sucker up with 9 cameras shooting it at various speeds, and then we digitally composited that into our shot from Washington.
95 million people watched the White House explode at the Super Bowl, and even more would see it in the coming months of the all-encompassing ad campaign. Phone lines around the country were tied up for hours downloading a postage stamp-sized QuickTime file of the proto-viral ad. By the time the film was released 7 months later, the shot was already iconic. Independence Day is full of moments we've carried with us far beyond the summer of '96, but more than Will Smith chomping a stogie, more than Brent Spiner being asphyxiated, more than the Fruitopia machine in Jeff Goldblum's office, it's this image, barely 6 seconds of screen time, that has become synonymous with the summer blockbuster as a whole. It was the birth of modern trailer culture, where work prints and con-exclusive footage are leaked weeks in advance and we're bombarded on social media with teasers for teasers. It was also ground zero for trailers being unfinished and ever so slightly deceptive. The helicopter caught in the explosion doesn't appear in the original ad. It was a new era of filmmaking slowly taking shape just as an old one was headed out to pasture.
I think old-fashioned effects, will never die out because they're simply too good.
There's still plenty of CGI in Independence Day. The dogfights are largely digital and look fantastic, and the shield and energy beam effects haven't aged a bit. Some of the compositing is a little sus, the odd CGI explosions stand out like a sore, low-resolution thumb, and Boomer's leap of salvation is just as preposterous today as it was in 1996, but overall, ID4 is an extremely successful blend of new technology and tried and tested tactility that rightly earned an Oscar for its achievement.
Our film does everything from the highest tech, digitally animated, digitally composite CGI shot to little models on wires in front of photo backings, and everything in between.
Independence Day is a film with one foot in the future and the other in an airplane hangar full of plaster and gasoline. What Devlin, Emmerich, Viscoso, Joyce, and their crews accomplished was, by any measure, a staggering triumph in craft that contains the entire history of visual effects within a crowd-pleasing package. Not bad for one take. Thanks for watching, everyone. What is your favorite special effect in Independence Day? Can you just not get enough of LA getting obliterated? Do you love seeing those gooey, tentacled alien puppets? Were you sad when Harry Connick Jr. blew up in his fighter jet? Leave a comment, let us know, and stay tuned to IGN for all your summer blockbuster needs.